Imagine waking up every morning, not knowing if you'll return home alive or find your loved ones gone. Imagine building hope while the world around you is buried in fear and death. This isn't a horror story. This was real life for a farmer in 1348 during the Black Death. In this video, you'll live an entire day through his eyes. What he ate, how he worked, what he feared, and what he never expected to happen. Don't miss a second. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thomas woke up just before sunrise. The air was cold and his breath was visible in the dim light. He stretched slightly on the straw mattress and rose slowly. He moved quietly so he wouldn't wake his wife and daughter. Their breathing was soft, but his heart felt heavy. He washed his face with water from a shallow bowl. He wore his rough-torn coat and tied his waist with a rope. He stepped outside into the thick morning fog. The ground was wet with dew, and the silence was eerie. He walked past homes with black crosses painted on the doors. The village was still as if it had stopped breathing. He reached the field and picked up his tools. He began plowing the soil with force and focus. He worked without speaking, as if escaping his own thoughts. At midday, he sat under a bare tree. He took out a piece of dry bread and a small onion. He ate slowly and drank from his leather flask. He blinked and suddenly found himself back in the cottage. His wife was crying and his daughter burned with fever. He placed his hand on the girl's forehead and panicked. His wife coughed blood and collapsed in front of him. He ran out shouting for help and knocked on every door. No one answered and every window was shut. He ran to the church and found it locked with coffins piled inside. He turned and saw plague carts moving down the street. Faces stared at him with empty, darkened eyes. He screamed in the street and fell to his knees. Then he blinked and was back under the tree in the field. The same bread and onion were in his hands. His heart was racing and his face was wet with tears. He stood slowly and returned to his work in silence. That evening, he walked home to his cottage. His wife stood at the door with pale hope in her eyes. She told him that their daughter had opened her eyes. He entered quietly and saw the girl sitting up in bed. He walked to her and looked into her fragile face. She smiled and whispered, "I missed you, Papa." He knelt beside her and hugged her gently. His wife watched from the corner with silent tears. They sat together while she brought him a small bowl of soup. They ate in silence and shared warmth that had been lost. That night, he lay beside his daughter, listening to her breathing. He heard footsteps outside and got up slowly. He saw men gathering bodies into wooden carts. No words were spoken, just the sound of dragging and wheels. He returned inside and locked the door with a wooden beam. His wife said, "If we survive this, we will build a chapel for her." He answered, "Not yet, but we will live for her." Late in the night, his daughter whispered that she was thirsty. He gave her water from the jar and covered her again. He sat beside her until she fell asleep peacefully. The next morning was quiet with soft golden sunlight. The air smelled less like death and more like earth. Thomas walked to the field with a quiet strength in his steps. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to hope. The plague was still around them, but something had changed. He was no longer just surviving, he was living for them. And in the silence of the field, he began again. And as the sun disappeared behind the hills, he returned home once more, not knowing if tomorrow would come or if this was his last walk through the fields. But even in the darkest days of history, the human spirit refused to die. If this story moved you, imagine how many more are still buried in time, waiting to be told. So if you want to uncover more forgotten lives and powerful moments from history, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss a story that could change how you see the past and the present.